Okay, well, Star Wars The Force Awakens. I gotta admit, I'm impressed with the product that they turned out, so overall impressions of the movie in one sentence. I think that this was a nice movie, but I'm kind of unsure as to what its place in the Star Wars saga is going to be like, because, to be honest with you guys, this felt like a typical science fiction movie, or fantasy movie, whatever you want to call it, with Star Wars stuff thrown into it. That's honestly how I feel because, as a few people have pointed out, this movie does appear to resemble a lot from A New Hope, but I actually didn't pick up on that until after I finished watching the movie, okay? And to be honest, the more I'm thinking about it, I think a few people should kind of let that point slide because I feel like there is a big difference between the character's behavior in A New Hope versus this movie because in A New Hope, I honestly feel like it was a bunch of coincidental circumstances that led everybody, to do what it was that they did, and even then, several things could have gone wrong and changed stuff that was happening during the course of the movie. Whereas for this movie, I honestly did not feel like the characters really had any other option that they could have done, okay? I felt like everybody's paths were a lot more forced. So that's a big difference between this and A New Hope. Now, let's jump into a couple of other things, shall we? Well, a common dislike that I've had for pretty much every other Star Wars movie is that I honestly feel like too much stuff has happened before each movie, because I've argued that for episode 1, episode 2, little bits for the original trilogy, but this time I honestly didn't think that because I felt like the opening crawl told us everything that we needed to know, and that all that we didn't really have were backstories to a couple of the bad guys, because the backstories to all of our protagonists, we got told just about everything that we needed to know over the course of this movie. Oh, sure, we don't totally have all of the chick's background. I'm breaking on her name now, even though I know it's pretty basic, like Ray or something like that, but I'm honestly not too bothered by that because the hints that we got were enough, so I'm really glad that this movie didn't feel like they jutted crazy along in the storyline. I felt like they were fine, minus the bad guy's background, like I said. But about the bad guys, I actually did like the different kind of menace that we got from these guys, because it looked like these people, were ordinary bad guys, but they acted in a way that suggests that, stuff could actually happen to them. Stupid phone! Making a video! Sheesh! Anyway, it definitely felt like that these bad guys could have stuff happen to them, but that they're smart, know what it is that they're doing, have potential to cause damage, yeah, because, even that general guy, who is played by Bill Weasley from the last 2 Harry Potter movies, he felt like somebody who actually could do stuff, unlike those generals in, Empire Strikes Back, who were basically Vader's, toys to boss around, because he supersedes their authority with a snap of their fingers, whereas Kylo Ren, you get the idea that even though he probably will supersede their authorities, okay, that it's just not as easy. So, that sets up an interesting dynamic, although I really would have liked to have known more about the Supreme Leader of the First Order, and I also wish that when they had showed him via the hologram, I wish that he made it a lot more clear that that was a hologram, okay? Because I genuinely thought he was like a 15-foot tall humanoid being, okay? Seriously. I didn't know that was a hologram until he was winked out of existence, so... Yeah, I mean, in the originals, you always showed them as blue. Huh? Make it obvious. Or you could have just shown the person's head in real color. Right. Yeah. So that's what I kind of wish they had done. But another thing that I like about Kylo Ren is not the fact that he's just, Han Solo's son, borrowing that element from some of the Star Wars novels, but after we get to see his face, I especially like the fact that he puts his mask back on for a good amount of the movie, because that's something that I've noticed that people do a lot for that kind of character. They just keep their face anonymous for quite a lot of the plot. Then they reveal it at one point, and then most of the menace goes away instantly. But the fact that he puts his mask back on, trying to suggest that he's somewhat troubled, especially in his confrontation with Han at the end, that's good. It, keeps him to be a lot more mysterious, and I'm sure that we're going to find out more about him, and that would be nice. But what we got in this movie wasn't that bad, especially since he didn't die at the end, because had he died at the end of the movie, yeah, then I would have been crying that they should have done more with him. But who knows, maybe the novelization for this movie is going to include stuff, because I've checked Wikipedia, there will be a novelization. I'm probably going to check that out at some point. Right, and I could talk about all the good guys and the new heroes, but I think like everybody has really touched upon that. Although I do kind of wish that we had gotten a little bit more into Finn's decision to switch, even though, once he fully, commits to switching sides, I don't have a problem with what he did after that, and it's understandable that, you just might not be able to shoot somebody, because if you've ever seen the beginning to the movie War Games, with Ferris Bueller, or Matthew Broderick, whatever you want to call him, there's a guy in there who unknowingly is being tested as to whether or not he can launch nukes on like Russia and Cuba, and even though he's signed up for that job and believes that he really does need to turn his key, he chooses not to, even when he's under gunpoint. And if you're gonna cry foul on me, I've told you the first 5 minutes of the movie. Seriously, you're gonna complain about me spoiling the first 5 minutes of the movie? I think you can let it go. Right. So, so I don't really call Finn's decision to switch that tricky. And I do like the fact that they did get like a female pilot or Jedi, because that's something that a user on here called The Unusual Suspect pointed out about the prequels, and one flaw that they had. Not that many good female characters, because like I'm trying to create a fictional universe that's set up in the future of planet Earth, and I'm trying to get a couple of good strong female protagonists in there, or anti-heroes, because to put it to you this way, there's two sides in this fictional universe, and then there's two brothers who get separated at one point in their lives, and they end up on opposite sides. Yeah, there's a female on both sides that helps them develop. Yeah, that kind of thing. Right. So I think that was good. Moving on to a couple of other things. I really like the little bits of humor that they put in there, because this didn't feel like Will Ferrell humor, nor that they were trying explicitly to be funny. It was just you found it funny because, Chewie tried to throw some bits with Han, and the one-liners that Han has with him, those were pretty amusing, but they weren't going too much out of the way. And then the bits with the stormtroopers are like noticing Clara Red, destroy an entire room, and they're like, yeah, that was great. I like that. And then the difference that they did for the Death Star or Planet Destructor, whatever they call it in the movie, I've only seen it once, and that was about 4 days ago. I really like the fact that they did that. It's a different idea. It explains why it took them, a kind of a long time to make it, and then why it was in the dark so long, and people learning from their mistakes with the Death Star, because I do honestly feel like it was a lot trickier to figure out the weak point to this thing than it was the Death Star, because I do honestly think a good amount of the reason that they were able to disable it had to be by luck, to be honest, and that it was multiple factors that allowed them to get it, rather than the Death Star, which the weakness was totally obvious, and it wasn't so much luck that allowed Luke to destroy it, it was the fact that he was a Jedi. Here, let's be honest, very little Force work was involved, so nice decision there. And then the decision to kill Han off. I gotta admit, I didn't completely see it coming because, unlike many people, when Han first went out there, I honestly didn't think that he was dead, even though I was thinking at the same time, shouldn't Kylo Ren, sense that his father is nearby? His father is a threat to him, so are all the other guys. He should sense something is up rather than just walking out onto the bridge. I did think that, but I like what they did there because it showed that he is troubled, even though his ultimate goal did appear to be to kill his father, but yeah, I didn't see it coming enough that I was kind of shocked by it and feel like he did go out for a purpose as long as we get more from Kylo Ren in the next installment, because as long as Han Solo doesn't go out for nothing, it'll be fine. And like my father was actually stating that they probably should have killed off Chewie, but I'm like, they already did kill off Chewie, okay? Because, right. They already killed him off. Kill off somebody new, especially since Harrison Ford had been complaining since Return of the Jedi that somebody should have been killed off in the originals. Because, let's face it, the only people who die in Return of the Jedi that, actually matter are Jabba the Hutt, the Emperor, and Vader. That's it. Yoda doesn't count. So, yeah. Somebody goes out for a little bit of a different purpose mid-movie. And it's interesting how Chewie was able to, actually, shoot Kylo Ren and make it a lot tougher for Finn and the chick, to, finish him off. And, he got hit in the chest and he, had to keep hitting his armor and drawing on the Force, like the Archfiend pointed out. The Force takes a toll on you the longer that you use it, especially with all the jumping around that those two were doing. So, him being weakened enough to the point where the others, with minimal training or Force abilities, could actually stand up against him? I don't mind that. He was weakened, both mentally, somewhat, and then a lot more physically. That's fine. And like I said, it was good that they left him alive at the end there. Real good. And then let's talk about Carrie Fisher and Mark Hamill's characters real fast. The changes that they've made to Leia, I don't totally mind it that much, because even though they do try to put some, royalty in her with her title in the original trilogy, I never really saw her that much as like a political person. She did seem to be much better at the military leadership, so for her basically going up to be for lack of a better term, Admiral Akbar was, even though he actually is in this movie, or at least I think that's him. I don't mind that. She seems to carry it naturally well, to be honest. I believe her as a military leader, even though she does have advisors all around her, and I'm surprised that they didn't feature Wedge Antilles in here. Maybe they'll do that, I don't know. Right. And then as for Luke Skywalker and what they did with him, well, to be honest with you guys, I actually predicted from the get-go that Luke was actually just a reclusive person in this movie, because like everybody was stating, oh, he's turned dark. That's totally what he's done in the trailer. That's who Kylo Ren is. But I'm like, guys, Luke doesn't have that much reason to turn dark, because when he turned dark in the EU, I know that the EU has been decanonized, okay? But, one, I was of the opinion that until there is something that directly conflicts with the EU, I'm going to treat it as canon. This directly conflicts with the EU, so the EU is off the books, pretty much, or at least everything after Revenge of the Sith, alright? So that's all off the books. But when Luke turns dark in the EU, which he only did once, it was for a very, very big reason, and there were people from his past, the Emperor, who convinced him to turn dark. Okay, it was a very complicated thing that made him turn dark. But when Rogue becomes a recluse, which he did I think 3 times in the EU, it was a ridiculously simple reason why he turned into a recluse. And one of his students, especially his what's his term for it? What's the term for it? Nephew, turning dark, making him depressed, probably? Yeah, I can believe that's why he left everybody. I can believe that in a second. So seriously, people, he's dark? No, he was a recluse, okay? Seriously, I predicted this from the get-go. So yeah, that was a good decision by the writers. And it would also explain why Mark Hamill seemed to jump out on the social media bandwagon before everybody else involved with this movie, right? So, I don't have any complaints with what they did with him there, although at the same time it does make the voiceover bits that he had in the trailer a little bit confusing, but who knows, maybe that's lines that they're saving for the next movie. I think that some movies have done that, where they put like a couple of voiceover lines and don't actually use them, but then later do. Possibly. Whew. So yeah, this was a good movie. Like I said, I'm kind of unsure of its place in the Star Wars saga because every Star Wars movie, with the exception of A New Hope's perception, has changed over time because Empire Strikes Back was mixed when it was first released, but now it's regarded as one of the best in the franchise in constant battle with A New Hope. Return of the Jedi has gotten a bit more of a mixed critical reception after its release. Phantom Menace, most people were meh about it, now they hate it. Attack of the Clones was regarded as kind of meh also, but now it seems to be mostly forgotten, which I think is actually worse than the Phantom Menace because the thing is, Phantom Menace seems to be a little bit more of it's so bad we're constantly complaining about it, whereas Attack of the Clones, it's so bad we keep forgetting about it. I honestly think that's worse, to be honest. And then even then, Revenge of the Sith was good when it came out, but now it seems to be getting real darn meh. A lot of people who have stated that they've liked it now just go, oh yeah, yeah. So I want to wait here and see how this movie turns out. And it's going to be interesting to see how they're going to treat the next 2 movies, because it looks like they're actually aiming for the next 2 movies to be released in the next 3 years, which is kind of different from how they've done it before, because previously they were released every 3 years. So yeah. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video, if you're not tired of sitting through tons of these already. And I know that I didn't talk about a bunch of the stuff that like everyone else talked about, but this is what was on my mind, alright? And there you go. Later.